That is such a shrill voice.
It is. It is. I do not like this for recording stuff, but such is life. This is the impromptu morning episode of Two Hard Problems. We haven't done this in forever.
It's too early in the morning for problems.
It's too early in the morning for shenanigans.
And shenanigans. Yeah. So I had this epiphany this morning about why DevOps, site reliability engineering, and platform engineering, all these concepts fail. We're doing it wrong. Like from right from the get-go. Here's
Yep.
what I'm gonna lay this out. I want to hear what you think, because this is what, and this will be sort of a stream of consciousness by thought process. I read this article quickly, and I read like the first part of it in like Medium, like about DevOps fails, blah blah blah. And I thought back to the times where I saw DevOps actually work, and what were the key things that kind of made it sort of why it worked in that culture. I thought back originally when the first spot I thought where things kind of worked like that, it wasn't really DevOps, was when our lawful access days.
Mm-hmm.
And why I thought that it worked well is because development was focused on the code, developing the code, working on through things and getting things done. We were focused on deployment and basically holistic detective work.
Mm-hmm.
So we throw it out there because we had a very simple deploy play, which is a little bit different than today's. These are a lot more complex, but still the attitude could be still applied. But we were able to, like, they just said, here's a new build, ship it out. We would ship it out, we would test it. And then what? Sometimes we go 5 minutes later, it's failing. We start it up, it fails. Here's the stack trace, here's the information you need. And we go back to them and say, here it is. But we work collaboratively together because they literally sat right beside us. A group of developers, 2 cubicles over. We could walk over and say, this is what we're seeing. We sit together, we collaborate. They try to go through a fix and then come back to us with something new, and then we try it. We didn't care about the development environment they were in. We never gave them any developer tools. They just shipped us a build. We put it out. We tested it. We came back, said it failed. So there was a lot of it was very light, very simple, but things got accomplished, and we were able to go through a lot of fun stuff. Second place I saw it work really well at was actually at XE. It took some time, but it was an organic flow. Once operations team was quite small. It was myself, which I didn't do anything in operations because I was highly focused on monitoring. You remember Robert?
Yep. Rob. Internet hot dog.
No, not that Rob.
Oh,
Robert,
the other Rob. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the tall one from at XE.
Yep.
And there was a couple other people on that team. Again, they were just a couple people doing operational support, right? They doing the same thing we did at Awful Access. I built out the logging aggregation so that the developers could actually start shipping their logs right to something so they could see problems before they even sent it to us. But we did not worry about whether or not about developer environments or anything like that. They did their thing. And then we put it into the CI/CD pipeline, and then we shipped it out. And then the developers would come with us. Developers would come over, one of them, and sit with one of the operations folks as we were doing the deployment. So they would work together. They would collaborate as it got rolled out. And if they spot any problems after the rollout, they go, you know what? Let's go back to the drawing board. Let's address it and get it done. Those worked really, really well. Reason being, number one, they were organic. So it was an organic thing. It wasn't pushed from the top down. Second thing I find too is that each had a defined role in that. Developers are doing what they like to do best. The engineers, operational engineers, whatever you want to call them, the holistic detectives, they did what they did best, what they like to do. And they didn't try to overlap like that. And neither worried about developer experience. I'm not saying developer experience is not essential, but given the size of the teams at the time, it wasn't needed. But in larger organizations, I see a separate team should be focused on developer experience because you want to keep consistency as you push things through. but that's a different part of the topic. But keeping developers happy, but it was the collaboration that is missing, and letting the people who do what they do best will focus on their good skills and then foster collaboration.
Yep.
I'm going to shut up now. What do you think?
Yeah. I think I can very easily tie this back to something I've been saying over and over again. And I think the demise of Agile can largely be chalked up to Atlassian. And this is what you're saying is effectively that whole like systems work. And the moment you create metrics to understand the state of the system or the performance of the system and to like gauge the success of the system, you create metric chasing. And that's what's happened is organically this works quite well. And my experience, I'm not going to go into any details, but my experience with is very close to yours. I mean, we've worked together at some of these places, but also, where I've seen DevOps work, it's because the staff were given the room to grow and trust each other and work together and organically create systems that work. And if I look at the places where it doesn't work, what I see is largely, well, here's our OKRs. And if your work doesn't line up with those OKRs, then it's not important. And we're understaffed, so we're going to book 100% of development time. And so staff is not given the room to work together, to understand each other, to support each other. People don't feel that they have the ability to step off and work with their SRE team, or for the SREs to work with the developers and work together to like, hey, this is weird. Let's dig into it for 6 hours. So yeah. Absolutely. And I think a lot of this comes down to trusting that your development team is going to do the right thing, trusting that people are going to make good decisions, trusting that people want to work together. Yep.
Yeah. Because I think this is, I don't know. I mean, people have been like banging their heads against the wall, trying to define DevOps and SRE and platform engineering. And I think it's just like, stop doing that. And honestly, I think platform engineering, the way it's kind of defined right now, the way you and I see it today, is completely broken.
Yeah.
Like there's so much on that team, right? The team we work with right now. By the way, I think I'm going to put this publicly, not.
I was just going to say, I would happily share the document that I've been working on to figure out what the platform teams are working on today and working towards. I'm not going to do that because this will be public, but I can say that if you look at the one platform team that we have, which is technically 3 different teams.
Yes.
Each one of those teams owns considerably more, like triple to quadruple the number, the volume of work, the number of repositories, the number of services than any other development team. And they're less than half the size of those development teams and don't have a PM, with the exception of one team. And they're in a whole world of hurt that we're trying to figure out how to fix. And yet the platform teams are just like, yep, that's par for the course. That's just what it is to work on platform.
But it shouldn't be like that. And
I think IT's in the same boat. Yeah.
Well,
like IT is platform engineering from a different perspective.
It's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
I never even thought about that. No wonder I have such a hate for IT. It's not their fault. It's just they're a team of many, too many hats.
Yep.
And I think this is where I think management has got to re-examine this. Stop pushing your platform team to do all those things. Like, take a couple people who are experienced, who want to work on developer experience, and let them focus on that, and build out this sort of unified look at how to get things from point A to point B. They can actually help with the CI/CD pipeline. You know what? Actually, this is an interesting thing that's going to be coming up, I think, in one of the future webinars that we'll be working on. With Honeycomb. I don't know if that, I mean, we haven't even done our first episode yet, so who knows. But hopefully we do, because it's like, like the question has been like, is an observability team necessary? And I think that's actually kind of a good question to ask, not just about observability, but is a CI/CD or a DevOps or a DX team necessary?
Yep.
And I think depending on your organization, I think that's a good question. And in some cases, I think it is. It depends on the culture, but you have to make that. But I also don't believe in forcing things. And one of our biggest problems is I'll go back for 1 second because you know how you like to ramble. Um, again, going back to XE, when I was doing stuff there, and we had like this sort of DevOps cultural mentality for a couple of years, it was fantastic. I mean, it just worked really, really well. We built out we had an excellent monitoring platform. I wouldn't say it was observability, but we were getting to a point where the alerts had a meaning. Alerts went to a centralized location. People knew what to do when they were on call. It was like, things were sort of working rather well. We had, development had a close relationship with the operations team, and the operations team was quite frankly 4 people. It was very small. And like Robert, he was off doing like strictly working on CI/CD pipelines. This is back when Jenkins actually worked well, and we had a good setup and all that stuff, and we knew how things were working. And then we got this new CTO roll in, and says, "We're doing DevOps." What do you think we were doing here? Like you can't just make a change in culture especially if you don't even know what the culture is. And I think this is a problem with a lot of our leadership. It's not that I'm not pointing at anybody specifically. I'm not thinking anybody specifically right now, but I think they need to recognize that these things have to be a cultural shift. There should be some encouragement and support top down, but I'm not mandated. And recognizing that certain things just won't work in certain organizations. You can't do cookie cutter solutions for every organization. So if it worked at organization A, it will not work at B maybe. So think about that.
When at a previous company, which was an oddball place to work, in that they focused on we're going to trust our people. We're going to hire smart people and we're going to trust them to do good things, but we're going to give them direction and we're going to set guidelines and we're going to set boundaries. And it worked quite well. It's not to say it was flawless, but it worked quite well. They had a remarkably large data team relative to the size of the company and the age of the company. So at like 8 years, the data team was like a third of the company. They were huge.
Wow.
And one of the side effects of that is that we actually had a much better understanding of our data persistence layers. We had a much better understanding of our database schemas. We had a much better understanding of our S3 buckets. We had a much better understanding of like everything that we stored because data was heavily involved in it. So we knew where all of our PII was. And if you created a PR that touched PII, they needed to review it. We had automated systems in place to flag it, and it was phenomenal. One of the things that they called out regularly, and I had 2 people sit down and give me a solid like hour education on this, is the difference between data driven and data assisted or data aware. And they were adamant that data driven is a warning sign. If someone says they're data driven, you need to be very cautious of that person because data is just data. And you can apply multiple different stories that fit what that data is telling you. And if you look at the data and you say, clearly it's telling me X, therefore X is true, there's any number of plausible scenarios that could come up. I look at DORA metrics. If you have, for example, PR review times are 3 days. You might look at that and say, that's way too long. We need to shrink that down. I mean, maybe that's true. Or maybe we're just shipping really large PRs. And the problem is that we need to reduce the size of our PRs. Or maybe nothing we're doing is urgent. And so it's fine. Maybe teams just have a cadence where they say twice a week we review PRs, and that creates a 3-day, and they're okay with that. There's any number of ways to interpret that data. And so what winds up happening is we get leaders who step in and they say, give me the metrics. And they look at the metrics and they say, this is not DevOps. I read this report once and this is what DevOps looks like. So we need to change. And suddenly like everyone who's working to create a performant, resilient, functioning, well understood, well-oiled machine is now being told, no, you're wrong. You have to do it this way. And so they're forced to chase these metrics that don't make any sense. and the leaders don't listen to them. I realize I'm rambling at this point. This is all just like basically restating what you said, but different perspective.
But it's a valid perspective because this is the kind of thing we're talking about, right? You have to sort of take time to look at how your team's performing. Like you said, if it's data driven, then we got to take a step back. You have to be cognizant of the other variables, or no, I guess the non-quantitative,
Good, your
quantitative.
qualitative analysis, but
Yeah.
also like the data tells you a portion of the story. It does not tell you the
Yeah.
whole
The
story.
whole story. Yeah. And that's the kind of like, that gets into observability too a little bit. But we have to drop soon to do our other meeting, and I have to grab my laundry out of the dryer.
All right. Wait.
Well,
not
yeah,
Monday.
yeah, I know, but the water was shut off yesterday, so we couldn't
I'm-
do it yesterday, so we're doing it today.
I don't like this.
I
This
know,
is
me neither.
weird.
So I'm going away in August, and like, for the first week in August, and my mom goes, well, what about me? Who's gonna do laundry with me? I said, I'll send Damien then. He'll stand in.
Okay.
I knew it. All right. Cool. Thanks for watching. Hit the like button. I don't know. Whatever else. What else do you see on YouTube?
Really?
I don't know.
How are you alive and on the internet and don't know? Like and subscribe, ring that bell.
Oh, I got that song in my head. Oh, it's bad. I know. Anyway, that would be good. Like, closing song as we like fade to black.